Have you ever wondered what secrets lie behind a stranger's smile? Hey, can you help me? My car just died, right in front of your shop. Derek Cole looked up from the toolbox without a word. The sun was sharp overhead, bouncing off the faded sign that read Cole's Auto and Repair. He didn't expect company, not today, not from her. She was standing by a beat-up silver sedan that had limped to a stop at the edge of his lot. Steam coiled up from under the hood like a warning. Her tone was flustered, but her face didn't match. There was something too calm in the way her blue eyes met his. Derek wiped his hands on a grease-stained rag and started walking over. At 6 feet 2 inches, with broad shoulders and a chest that had once stopped a linebacker cold, he moved with quiet command. Sweat clung to his dark skin, and his navy coveralls were streaked with the familiar grime of a long day under the hood. "Pop it," he said simply, gesturing to the hood. The young woman hesitated, then leaned into the driver's side and yanked the lever. The hood gave a protesting groan as Derek lifted it. She hovered beside him, fidgeting with the strap of her purse. "I think it overheated, or maybe the battery. I don't know. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to just roll in like this. What if this breakdown was no accident?" He didn't answer right away. What he saw under the hood didn't match the story. Everything looked fine, nothing leaking, no burnt wiring, no real signs of distress. He'd bet his last dollar it started fine this morning, but he said none of that, not yet. "You local?" he asked without looking up. She paused. "Just passing through." You always pass through in a car that breaks down 2 feet from a mechanic's bay. That earned him a nervous chuckle. "Guess I got lucky." He finally looked at her, really looked. She couldn't have been more than 24, skin like porcelain kissed with the heat, a long loose dress clinging just enough to her curves and long honey blonde hair tied into a messy knot. She was pretty, too pretty to be wandering this far south of the city alone. And she knew it. "I'm Maya," she offered, holding out a hand. He didn't take it. "Derek," she dropped her arm, a little embarrassed, but trying not to show it. "Look, I should tell you up front I don't have money on me right now. I thought I had enough gas to make it back. I didn't expect. Didn't ask for money." He cut in. "Did I?" Maya blinked. "No, you didn't." "Then don't offer apologies like payment." He closed the hood with a quiet thud and pointed to the lot. "Roll her in. I'll take a better look." As he turned, she followed, still unsure whether this was kindness or just professional courtesy. The shop was quiet, lit by strips of warm sun through the dusty windows. Tools were arranged with military precision. On one wall hung a photo of a younger Derek in uniform beside a proud, smiling older woman. His mother, maybe. Everything here felt solid, built with hands, not money. "Do you fix a lot of cars for free?" she asked cautiously. "Only on Thursdays and only for women who lie badly." She froze. "Excuse me." Derek arched an eyebrow but didn't stop walking. "That car is not broken, Maya. And you didn't roll in on coincidence. So, the real question is, what are you actually doing here?" Maya's mouth parted slightly. Her act, fragile as a soap bubble, trembled. "I'm sorry," she said at last. "I just saw your shop a few times. You helped an old woman last week on the sidewalk. No cameras, no spotlight, I thought." She trailed off, unsure what she thought. Derek leaned against the workbench, arms folded. "You thought what?" "That you'd stage a breakdown to test what kind of man I am." "No," she said quickly, then softer. "Maybe." He studied her for a long moment. Her eyes didn't flinch now. And for some reason, that mattered more than the lie itself. "Well," he said, finally picking up a wrench. "You got your answer. Question is, what are you going to do with it?" "I'll pay you back," she said, voice firmer now. "Don't need your money." She hesitated. "Then why help me?" He met her gaze. "Because whatever game you're playing, you look tired of playing it." Silence fell, not awkward, just full. Maya nodded once and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned over her shoulder and said, almost like a secret, "You're nothing like anyone I've ever met." Derek watched her go, expression unreadable. Then under his breath, he said, "Let's hope that's a good thing." And with that, he went back to work on the car that didn't need fixing and the questions that didn't have answers, not yet. Could this be the start of something unexpected? The next morning, Derek arrived at the garage before sunrise. The dew still clung to the edge of the lot, and the gravel crunched beneath his boots in the familiar rhythm he'd known for years. He unlocked the heavy front gate, flipped on the lights, and stood in the quiet hum of his shop, a space that knew his breath patterns, the weight of his silence, and the shape of his every doubt. Maya hadn't come back yet. He hadn't expected her to. Derek wasn't the kind of man who got followed up on. Most people took his help and disappeared. They didn't mean harm. They just weren't built to return where they'd found mercy. That was fine. He didn't help for the thanks. Still, he found himself glancing toward the lot twice before 9. At 9:27, he heard the soft roll of tires across gravel. Not a loud engine, not a fancy one either. She pulled in cautiously, like she wasn't sure if she was welcome. Derek didn't look up as she stepped out. He was elbow deep in the engine of an old Dodge pickup. The kind that had rust in its bones and grit in its soul. "You're back," he said without shifting his gaze. "You sound surprised," Maya replied, hugging her arms across her chest. "I'm not." She stood in the doorway for a moment, taking in the space again. "I brought coffee, black. No sugar, just a hunch." He didn't take his eyes off the wrench. "That's a pretty safe bet." Maya set the paper cup on the bench near him. "You didn't fix the car. It wasn't broken." "I know. Still, it's sitting in your lot. It's fine where it is." She glanced at him. "Are you always like this?" He paused, straightened slowly, and finally looked at her. "Like what?" "Stoic, suspicious, a little intimidating." He gave a half smile. "Only when someone fakes a breakdown to test my character," she winced. "Fair." Derek wiped his hands and finally picked up the coffee. He sipped, nodded approvingly, then walked past her toward the back of the garage. She followed, not quite invited, but not turned away either. The back wall was lined with old black and white photos. One showed a man in uniform, broad-shouldered, tall, almost a mirror of Derek. Another showed a young boy sitting on the hood of a truck, smiling through missing teeth. A small wooden plaque read, "And Sons since 1969. "Your dad?" Maya asked. "Grandfather. He started this place. My father took over. Then me." She nodded. "That's rare. People holding on to legacy like that. Where I'm from, legacy is all we've got." "Oh." Maya leaned against the wall, eyes roaming the photos. "I didn't mean to lie. You know, I didn't know how else to talk to you. You could have just said hello." She laughed lightly. "You don't exactly have an open door energy." He shrugged. "Open doors get kicked in." They stood in quiet for a few beats. Then she said, "You don't trust me." "I don't know you." "Well, maybe I'd like to change that." Derek studied her. The guarded way she spoke, the careful positioning of her body, not manipulative, just learned, like someone who'd grown up around too many people who smiled with knives behind their backs. "Why?" he asked. She blinked. "Why?" "What? Why do you care what I think? You're not from here. You don't need anything from me. Why come back?" Maya hesitated. And for a moment, Derek thought she might lie again, but then her shoulders dropped. "I come from a world where everything is curated," she said quietly. "Where people have dinner with you because your last name unlocks doors, where no one asks if you're okay unless there's a press release attached. I got tired. I wanted to know if people were still real." "And you thought I was real?" "I hoped." "And you didn't disappoint." Derek stared at her a moment longer, then turned back to the workbench. "You're not the first person who's come in here looking for something," he said. "But most of them don't bring coffee." She smiled. "Is that your way of saying I can stay a while?" He nodded toward the extra stool. "Depends. You know how to hold a flashlight?" Maya took the seat, picked up the light, and held it with both hands like it was something sacred. "Coach me. Keep it steady. No shaking. Steady is my specialty." Derek chuckled softly and reached for the next tool. They worked like that for the better part of an hour, her holding the light, him giving short, firm instructions. It wasn't much, but it was something. And for two people who'd both built high walls around themselves, even something felt like a miracle. As the afternoon light began slanting across the garage floor, Maya finally asked, "What do you do when the thing you thought would break you doesn't?" Derek didn't answer right away. Then quietly, he said, "You wait for the next one." She nodded slowly. "And if it never comes, then maybe you get to breathe." They didn't say anything else for a while. At 5:04, Maya stood and brushed off her skirt. "Thanks for letting me hang around. I'll come by tomorrow if that's okay." Derek didn't look up from the engine. "Garage opens at 7 o'clock. Bring a pair of gloves." "Are you serious?" "I don't waste time with games." She smiled. "Not a test, not a trick, just soft and real." "Then I'll see you at 7 o'clock. And before we keep going, tell me, where are you watching this story from now?" Let's see what happens when a lie leads to something real, brought to you by BUP Stories. The sun had barely crested the rooftops when Derek spotted Maya sitting on the hood of her car outside the garage, sipping coffee, and kicking her heels gently against the bumper like a schoolgirl waiting for the bus. She wore the same flannel shirt from yesterday, sleeves rolled, gloves tucked into her back pocket. If she was trying to blend in, she was getting better at it. "You're early," Derek said, unlocking the front gate. "Old habits," she replied, hopping down. "When I want something to go right, I show up before it can go wrong." He gave a small grunt. Not quite agreement, not quite amusement. Inside, the air smelled like metal and memory, burnt oil, faint rubber, and fresh coffee. Maya walked straight to the back, tied up her hair, and started prepping the tools without being asked. She moved with the rhythm of someone who had made this part of her day, not a detour. That morning's job was a radiator replacement on a beat-up Chrysler that belonged to Pastor Milligan. The man paid in cash, always exact to the cent, and left behind pocket-sized scripture cards Derek would quietly slip into the donation jar at the community center. Derek had no use for sermons but respected consistency. Maya worked beside him without chatter, handing over tools before he even asked, wiping sweat from her own forehead without complaint. At one point, she leaned back and said, "You ever think some machines just want to die in peace?" Derek looked at her. "You talk like someone who gives everything feelings. Maybe you don't. Machines are simple. They don't lie." She tilted her head. "What about the people who fix them?" He didn't answer. By mid-morning, word had spread again. This time, it wasn't about Derek's repairs or another elderly customer he refused to charge. It was about the girl, the one who wasn't from around here, the one who kept showing up, dressed a little too nice, asking a few too many questions, and who hadn't once paid a dime. At first, it came in side glances. Then the questions. "You hiring Derek?" asked Hank, the town's part-time plumber and full-time gossip number. "She sure seems permanent. She volunteers. Pretty fancy volunteer." Later, Mrs. Reed came by with her Buick and a tray of lemon bars. "She's sweet," the old woman said as Maya changed her wiper blades. "But girls like that don't stay long in places like this, just passing through, looking for a good story to tell their friends back in the city." Maya heard it. Derek saw the way her smile faltered when she handed back the tray. After lunch, Maya sat out on the back steps while Derek rotated tires on a Chevy. He joined her a few minutes later, wiping his hands with a rag. "They talk a lot here," she said, not looking at him. "Always have. I guess I should be flattered." "You shouldn't care." "I don't," she hesitated. But I kind of do. Derek leaned against the railing. That'll pass. They think I'm pretending, she said, voice low, that I'm playing some game, and I get it. They're not wrong, at least not completely. Derek didn't reply. He let her sit with her own words, her own weight. After a moment, she asked, "Do you believe me now?" He took a long breath. "You stopped lying. That's a start." That afternoon, as they were finishing the last job, timing belt replacement on a Civic, Maya noticed a slip of paper stuck in the crack of the front door. It was folded in half, her name scribbled on it in faint pencil. She opened it slowly. "We don't need your kind fixing things that were never broken. Go back to your life." No signature, no explanation. She said nothing, folded it again, stuck it in her back pocket, and didn't bring it up. But Derek saw that night after they'd locked up and said goodnight, Derek sat at his desk in the back room, staring at the invoice book he hadn't touched all day. He couldn't stop picturing that folded paper in Maya's hands. The way her eyes dropped just a second too long before she smiled again. He picked up his phone, hovered over Tamika's contact, then put it down. He didn't want protection. Not yet. Not for this. He wanted to see what she'd do next. The following morning, she was there again, earlier than ever. Dressed in a navy blue jumpsuit, hair braided tight, black smudges already on her forearms. No coffee, no excuse, just, "What's the job today?" Derek nodded toward a minivan. "Brake rotors." "I'm in." They didn't speak much, but there was something new in how she moved, more focused, more deliberate. When Tamika dropped by on her lunch break again, she saw it, too. "You're still here," Tamika said. Mia wiped her hands and looked her straight in the eye. "Yep." Tamika glanced at Derek, who was checking tire pressure, then back at Maya. "You serious about all this?" "I am." Tamika nodded once, slowly. "Then I'll stop waiting for you to mess up." "Appreciated," Mia replied as Tamika walked away. She paused at the door and tossed over her shoulder. "Bring donuts next time. Gluten-free or the real kind?" Mia called back. "The kind with too much sugar in judgment." They all chuckled. That night, as Maya packed up to leave, Derek walked her to her car. She unlocked the door but didn't get in right away. "Do you ever get used to people assuming the worst?" "No," Derek said. "But I've learned to care less." "And if it gets louder," he gave her a long look. Then with a softness most people never saw, said, "Then you turn the wrench louder." She laughed, tired and honest. "I'll see you tomorrow," she said. He nodded, 7 sharp. And this time, as she pulled out onto the gravel road, she didn't look back. Derek stood under the buzzing porch light, arms crossed. He knew what that note had meant. And he knew why she hadn't told him. Maya Holloway, whoever she really was, wasn't here to be rescued. She was here to prove she didn't need to be. And in the world Derek came from, that was the kind of truth worth respecting. Friday began with a stranger's knock. Derek was under the lift, listening to Maya hum along with a classic rock station while she loosened an oil filter when the rap of knuckles echoed through the shop. He slid out, wiped his hands, and found a lean man in a crisp gray suit waiting at the door. A thin briefcase clutched to his chest. "Mr. Cole?" the man asked, voice precise. "That's me," the stranger offered a sealed envelope from Crescent First Bank, time-sensitive. Then he turned, climbed into a glossy sedan, and disappeared down the street before Derek had the chance to say a word. Derek stared at the envelope as if it might bite. The bank only wrote for 2 reasons, late fees or foreclosure. He tore it open with a thumb. Inside was no demand, no warning, just a single sheet acknowledging receipt of a $12,000 payment toward the shop's loan. The balance that had hung over his head for 3 years gone. He blinked once, twice, as if the numbers would rearrange themselves into something less impossible. They did not. "Everything okay?" Ma's voice floated from the bay. He folded the letter, tucked it into his back pocket, and forced his face neutral. "Yeah, just paperwork." But the letter burned against his skin for the next 2 hours. Around noon, Derek slipped into the small office at the rear of the shop, the one that still smelled faintly of his father's pipe tobacco. He locked the door, dialed the bank, and asked for confirmation. The teller on the line was cheerful. Yes, the payment posted yesterday. No, she couldn't disclose the account that paid it, only that it was a private trust. Derek ended the call, pulse thrumming. He knew one person in Oakfield with access to that sort of money, and she was on the other side of the garage singing off-key at a lug nut that refused to budge. He watched her through the dusty window in the office door. How easily she moved now, how quickly she smiled. It all felt like a rehearsal he'd wandered into by mistake. And suddenly, every quiet moment, every shared coffee, every gentle laugh rushed back, framed in suspicion. He shoved the letter into his wallet and walked out. Maya was dragging a tire toward the balancer, cheeks flushed with exertion. "You sounded mad on the phone," she said, catching his expression. "Need to talk." His tone made her straighten. He gestured her outside behind the shop where honeysuckle climbed the chain-link fence, and the air smelled sweeter than a mechanic's yard had any right to. The afternoon sun sharpened every shadow. "Did you pay my loan?" he asked, holding her gaze. Maya blinked, then shook her head too quickly. "I don't know what you mean. Bank says 12 grand just showed up. That the kind of coincidence you believe in?" She wrapped her arms around herself, palms pressed to opposite elbows. "You were drowning, Derek. I could stand by and watch, or I could throw a rope." "I didn't ask for a rope." "You didn't have to," she whispered. He reached into his wallet, pulled out the letter, and held it between them. "You know what this feels like?" Pity dressed in cash. Pity. She stepped forward. "This isn't pity. It's gratitude. Respect. If you respected me, you'd have talked to me first. You'd have trusted me enough to say you were helping. You would have said no." You bet I would have." Maya's eyes shimmered. But she blinked away the gloss. "You fix things without charge every day. Why is it wrong for someone to fix something for you?" "Because I'm not your project," he said, voice low. "I'm not a story you get to tell at brunch." Her shoulders stiffened as though he'd slapped her. "You really think that's what this is? A story? You tell me." For a beat, they stood in silence. Sun baking the scent of cut grass and gasoline between them. Maya's jaw trembled. She inhaled once, steadying herself, then spoke with brittle calm. "I've lived my whole life behind velvet ropes. Every friendship came with a ledger. Every hug got weighed against tomorrow's favor. Then I met you, a man who gave without asking. I needed to do the same. Not as Maya Holloway with her father's money, but as the woman you handed a wrench and trusted not to drop it." "Then why hide?" "Because the moment money shows up, everything changes. I thought if I did it quietly, maybe you'd just breathe easier and we could keep being normal." Derek's laugh was small and humorless. "Normal? Nothing about this is normal." Maya's face colored. "I'm sorry. I thought I was helping." "Help is more than cash," he said. Softer now, but no less firm. "It's honesty. It's showing up when things are ugly and staying when they don't get better." Her lower lip trembled. "I did stay, but you still lied." She swallowed hard, nodded once, then fumbled with the glove in her back pocket. "I guess I did." Silence stretched. Beyond the fence, a train horn wailed long and mournful. Finally, she spoke again. Voice hoarse. "If I pull the money back, will you forgive me?" "It's not about the money, Maya. It's about trust. I can't build anything on sand." The words landed between them, final as a closed casket. Maya looked at him for a long moment, something fragile cracking in her eyes, then turned toward her car. He didn't call her back. He couldn't. She drove off without slamming the door, without so much as the squeal of tires, just the soft crunch of gravel and the fading hum of the engine that had never really been broken. Derek stood alone behind the shop until the sun dipped low enough to burn his retinas. A knot tightened in his chest, not anger now, but something closer to grief. That night, he stayed late, cataloging parts that didn't need cataloging, wiping wrenches that were already clean. He kept imagining her in that oversized flannel, laughing in the glow of the work lamp, pretending they were equals. He wished he could hate her. It would be simpler. At midnight, he locked the big garage doors and headed for home. The notebook with the bank's letter felt heavier than metal in his pocket. As he crossed the dark lot, an old scripture card from Pastor Milligan blew against his boot. He picked it up without thinking. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. Derek exhaled, folded the card, and tucked it away. Tomorrow held too many questions and not enough answers. But come sunrise, he would open the doors again. Same as always. Machines at least never lied about what they needed. People were harder because sometimes they meant every word, even the ones they never dared to say aloud. Derek hadn't seen Maya for 3 days. The shop was quiet without her. Too quiet. The radio didn't hum as loud. The tools didn't clink the same. Even the coffee tasted more bitter. He kept his routine open at 7 o'clock, close at 6 o'clock, but the rhythm was hollow. Tamika noticed the shift, too. On the second morning, she stopped by with a paper bag of his favorite cinnamon rolls and leaned on the counter, watching him torque a bolt with more force than necessary. "You told her off, didn't you?" she asked. "I told her the truth." Tamika raised an eyebrow. Truth's not always the smartest thing to throw at someone when they're already trying to do right. She lied. She tried. Derek didn't answer. He just kept working, jaw clenched like a locked door. By the fourth day, a white delivery van pulled into the lot. A man in uniform stepped out, checked the address on a clipboard, and waved a quick hello. "Got a shipment for Mr. Cole," he said. Derek frowned. "Didn't order anything." The man shrugged. "Says it's prepaid. Special tools and equipment straight from Detroit." Confused, Derek signed the sheet and accepted the crates. They were heavy, professional-grade lifts, wrenches, diagnostics computers, all brand new and expensive. Taped to one of the boxes was a note. "Don't be mad. Just build something better." He crumpled the note in his hand and walked straight into the office, slamming the door harder than he meant to. She was still trying to fix what couldn't be bought. That afternoon, while returning from the hardware store, Derek caught sight of something out of place near the lot across the street, parked half in shade, a matte black Rolls-Royce. His breath caught for half a second, and then the back door opened. Maya stepped out, dressed nothing like the mechanic in training she'd been. She wore a sleek gray blazer over a cream blouse, slacks tailored to perfection, and her hair was done with quiet elegance. No dust, no oil, no borrowed flannel. Derek stood rooted in place. She walked toward him with calm grace. Every step measured, unafraid. When she reached him, she removed a pair of sunglasses and met his gaze fully. "Hi, Derek." His arms stayed crossed, jaw rigid. "You come to pay off my property line now, too?" She flinched but didn't back down. "No, I came to tell the truth, the whole of it." He didn't respond, but his silence gave permission. Maya took a slow breath. "My name is Maya Elizabeth Holloway. My family owns Holloway Capital. We build resorts, fund renewable energy initiatives, and sit on too many boards that never meet. I've been the company's shadow daughter since I was old enough to hold a wine glass and smile at business deals I didn't understand. 3 months ago," she continued, "I walked out of a meeting where I was being groomed to marry the son of a hedge fund executive. I got in my car, drove until I hit a road without traffic lights, and told myself I wouldn't come back until I found someone who did something real." "And so you chose me," Derek said flatly. "Like an experiment." "No," she said softly, "like a compass." He shook his head. "You had every chance to tell me who you were. You chose to play poor, to fake problems. Then when things didn't go your way, you started handing out money like it was apology." "I panicked," she said. "I didn't think you'd take me seriously if I came in wearing this." She gestured at her outfit. You were wrong. I know that now. The silence between them cracked with weight. I wasn't trying to make you a charity case, Maya said. I was trying to invest in someone who made me believe people could still be good without a price tag. He studied her carefully. So, this was about your faith in the world. It was about someone showing me what dignity looks like, and I wanted to honor that. He stepped back slightly, unsure where to place his anger anymore. You can't drop 10 grand on someone's life and expect it to fix what you broke of. I don't expect anything, she said. I came to ask if you'll let me fix this the right way. Derek folded his arms again, but it was less armor now, more habit. And what's the right way? Let's rebuild this place, she said. For real. Not just your shop, but something bigger. A training center, a safe place for kids to learn a trade. For single moms who need their cars fixed, for veterans who've been left behind. I'll fund it quietly. You'll run it loudly. He stared at her. You think one community garage will fix what's wrong with this world? No, she said firm. But it might fix what's been hurting in this town and maybe in you too. That landed harder than she knew. He looked away, hands twitching with thoughts he didn't speak. All the years spent patching broken engines and rusted hearts, never once thinking anything bigger would come from it. Now this woman who'd arrived with a fake breakdown and a real gaze was handing him the very thing he'd never dared to dream. A chance to do more. I don't want my name on it, she added quietly. I want yours. He looked back at her, finally seeing past the polished blazer and practiced posture. I need time, he said. Maya smiled softly. Take all the time you want. I'll be around. She turned to leave, then paused. By the way, I replaced the coffee filters in your break room. The old ones were starting to taste like cardboard. He snorted. You don't even drink black coffee. Not yet, she said over her shoulder. But I'm learning. She stepped into the car and was gone. And Derek stood in the middle of his cracked lot, watching the dust settle, holding more than just a proposal in his hands. He held the weight of something changing, slowly, silently, but real. He looked down at his shop, then up at the sky. Maybe, just maybe, the world hadn't finished building him yet, either. The next morning, the garage was still dark when Derek arrived, just as the horizon was bleeding into amber. The air was thick with the scent of dew and diesel. He unlocked the side door, flicked on the main light, and stood in the middle of the shop with his arms at his side, silent, unmoving. The new equipment from Detroit sat in unopened crates pushed to the back corner. Each box had a bright sticker handle with care, high-value contents. But the only thing Derek had trouble handling was the question circling his mind. What the hell was he supposed to do now? He moved slowly as if each step had to be weighed. Coffee brewed. Tools were checked. He swept the floor even though it didn't need it. Outside, a pickup rolled past. Someone honked a good morning. He didn't wave. By noon, he still hadn't touched the crates. He sat behind the desk in the office, his father's old leather chair, still bearing cracks from years of sweat and stories, and stared at the same page in the ledger for 20 minutes. It wasn't numbers he was stuck on. It was purpose. Then came a knock, not light, not tentative. Derek looked up. Maya stood at the door, not dressed in a suit, not in jeans either, just something simple, comfortable. Her hair was down. She looked tired, like someone who hadn't slept but refused to show it. She held no papers, no briefcase, only a white cardboard box and a folded blanket under one arm. I'm not here to talk business, she said. Derek didn't answer, but he didn't send her away either. Maya stepped inside, placed the box on the table, and sat across from him. These are cinnamon rolls from Ruby's, Tamika told me, they're your favorite. He raised an eyebrow. That woman shares too much. She said they're your thinking food. I figured you might be thinking today. He leaned back, arms crossed, gaze steady. What do you want, Maya? She exhaled slowly. I want a chance to rebuild trust. Not just between us. Between me and this place. You think cinnamon and icing is going to do that? No, she said. That's what the blanket's for. That actually made him laugh, a short, unguarded sound. She smiled. I also brought you something else. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a set of keys, dangling them in the air. What's that? Proof I moved out of the Holloway estate, got a place off Pine and 7th. Tiny house, terrible plumbing, great light. Derek narrowed his eyes. You left all that behind? I needed to know who I was without the name. She looked at him carefully. And I want to be part of this place. Not as an investor. Not as the girl who lied. Just as someone who wants to help and learn. He looked at her hands, still soft but marked now, smudged from engine grease with a faint nick on her knuckle from last week's alternator job. You're not like the others, he murmured. I didn't want to be. Silence again. Not uncomfortable, just thick with memory. You made me feel like a fool. He finally said, I know. I trusted you. I know that, too. And you broke it. I'm not asking for another shot at being right. She said quietly. I'm asking for another shot at being honest. Derek studied her. Then, without a word, he stood, walked to the back of the shop, and pulled the tarp off the largest crate. He ripped the tape, opened the box, and lifted out a brand new diagnostic console, state-of-the-art, sleek, clean, expensive. He placed it on the rolling cart and turned it on. It hummed to life. Maya watched, unsure of what to say. He looked at her. We build this thing your way with my rules. She sat straighter. Absolutely. No free rides, no names on the sign, but mine. Understood. Tamika has full authority to check every invoice you sign. Maya's eyes twinkled. She'll love that. And you mop floors before you file grants. Done. He extended a hand. She hesitated, then shook it. Her grip was firmer than he expected. This is a one-time offer, Derek said. I won't waste it, she replied. They stood there side by side, two people with more baggage than room, but somehow it fit. Later that afternoon, Tamika arrived with 2 pizzas and a skeptical frown. Maya met her at the door and handed her a clipboard. What's this? Tamika asked. Preliminary budget with backup receipts. You're learning. I've had good teachers. Tamika glanced at Derek, then back at Maya. I still don't trust you. Maya nodded. Fair, but I'm willing to see where this goes. They spent the rest of the day cleaning out the back office, unpacking equipment, and sketching out plans. At one point, a teenager wandered in asking for help with a flat. Derek handed him a patch kit and a stool. Maya showed him how to use it. And when the boy looked up and asked, Is this place hiring? Derek said, Not yet, but maybe soon. As the sun dipped, casting golden streaks across the garage floor, Derek stood by the new sign being painted. It wasn't up yet, just laid out on 2 sawhorses. It read, Cole's Garage and Learning Center. Built on trust, powered by work, open to all. He stared at it for a long time. Then without looking back, he said, You coming tomorrow? Maya, rolling up blueprints on the workbench, smiled. Already bought 'em up. And for the first time since she'd knocked on his garage door, pretending her car was broken, Derek Cole let himself believe that some broken things weren't meant to be scrapped. They were meant to be rebuilt stronger, together. By the time the ribbon went up across the front gates of Cole's Garage and Learning Center, the rumors had already outrun the truth. People from across Oakfield whispered everything from Derek winning the lottery to the garage being bought out by a Hollywood producer. But none of the stories felt more far-fetched than the truth itself, that a stubborn mechanic with a tired past had joined hands with a reformed heiress to build something this town didn't know it needed. The new space wasn't flashy. That was never the point. The faded concrete walls had been sandblasted and painted a warm gray. Windows were enlarged to let in real light. A second bay had been added, not for more business, but for more students. A small classroom, just 4 folding tables and a whiteboard occupied what used to be a storage room, and the waiting area now held more than a coffee pot. It had shelves of books, a free tools library, and a framed photo of Derek's grandfather holding a wrench like a baton of legacy. Maya stood near the entrance the morning of the soft opening, clipboard in hand, hair tied back, wearing a navy blue work shirt with her name stitched on the chest, just Maya. She scanned the checklist one last time, then looked up as Derek walked in from the side, carrying a bucket of fresh oil rags and a box of shop towels. "You're late," she said with a grin. "I was early for 20 years, he replied. "Balance. Everything's in place." Tamika triple-checked the safety drills. "The inspection papers are posted, and the donuts are being delivered by someone with too much attitude." "Leo, who else?" Derek nodded, dropped the box on the counter, and looked around. There were still imperfections, scratches in the paint, a scuff on the new floor, but that was okay. Perfection had never been the goal. Purpose was. By 10 o'clock, the lot was full. Not customers, but people, neighbors, curious teens, retired mechanics, local shopkeepers, and mothers holding toddlers who couldn't stop pointing at the power tools mounted neatly on pegboards. The mayor didn't show up. He hadn't RSVP'd either, but Miss Lorraine from the corner thrift shop brought a basket of muffins, and Pastor Milligan came by with a prayer card taped to a wrench. "For strength," he said with a wink. At 11, Derek stepped forward to speak. Maya tried to hand him a printed speech, but he shook his head. "I don't need paper to say what's real," he murmured. He stood in front of the small crowd, hands clasped, the breeze tugging at his sleeves. "I used to think fixing engines was the only way I could contribute," he said. "That maybe if I kept a few people on the road, it made up for not being able to fix anything bigger." He paused, scanned the faces, familiar, curious, uncertain. But then a woman walked into my shop with a story that wasn't real and a heart that was. She lied. Yeah, but she also stayed. And that changed something. Maya looked down, the smallest smile playing on her lips. "This place," Derek continued, "ain't just about cars anymore. It's about people. It's about giving the next kid with no direction a pair of gloves and someone who believes they're more than a number. We don't sell hope here. We build it with sweat, steel, and a whole lot of second chances." A quiet murmur rippled through the group. He stepped back. No applause, just silence. And in that silence, something sacred. Tamika clapped once sharply. Then again, soon the entire crowd joined, not roaring cheers, just something honest, steady, grounded. Later that afternoon, the first student arrived. His name was Rico, 17, built like a linebacker, but skittish like a rabbit. He walked through the door alone, clutching a folded flyer and mumbling something about hearing you help kids who don't do well in school. Derek led him to the classroom. Didn't ask questions. Just handed him a shop manual and a pen. "Start by reading page 1. You don't have to understand it yet. Just start." Rico nodded, sat, and opened the book with the careful reverence of someone who'd never been given anything new. The next day brought 2 more teens. By the end of the week, they had 8. And by the end of the month, a local news crew showed up asking questions Maya politely declined to answer. "We're not ready for headlines," she said. "We're still building the story." One evening after locking up, Maya found Derek sitting out back, legs stretched, sipping iced tea from a paper cup. She joined him, dropping beside him on the step with a sigh. "Today was good," she said. "Yeah, better than good," he nodded. She looked at him. "Do you ever think about how different it would have been if I hadn't faked that car trouble?" He smirked. "Every damn day." They laughed. Then she added, "Do you ever regret it?" His smile faded, replaced by something steadier. "No, because you showed up, that's what matters." She grew quiet. Then after a long moment, asked, "Do you trust me now?" He looked at her, not with suspicion, not with caution, but with the weight of every shared day, every silence, every wrench handed, every truth exchanged. "I'm getting there," he said. And for Maya, that was more than enough. They sat until the stars bled through the dusk and Oakfield settled into its sleepy hush. Somewhere inside, oil still dripped. The floor still smelled faintly of rubber and possibility. But outside on the worn concrete step sat a woman who had walked away from a fortune and a man who had lived with nothing but his name. And together they'd built something neither of them had planned. A future, one bolt at a time. The first snowfall dusted Oakfield the morning Maya stood in front of the small mirror in the garage's break room. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, then checked the back of her navy shirt to make sure the grease smudge hadn't returned. It hadn't. Still, she rubbed at it again out of habit. Outside, a light flurry fell on the cracked sidewalk and the new hand-painted sign, Cole's Garage and Youth Workshop. It didn't need to be flashy. Everyone in town already knew what it stood for. Inside the garage, the smell of motor oil was now forever laced with the scent of fresh brewed coffee. Rico was wiping down tools at Station 2, humming a Marvin Gaye song under his breath. Tamika ran inventory on brake fluid and spark plugs. A pair of new kids, twins from the north side, were learning how to rotate tires under Derek's quiet, watchful eye. Maya stepped into the shop and caught Derek mid-sentence, explaining torque ratios like he was teaching philosophy. He glanced up when he saw her. "You ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be," they walked out together. The event was small by design, just a few folding chairs, a makeshift podium borrowed from the community center, and a line of high schoolers in matching navy jackets, each with the word apprentice stitched above their hearts. The mayor didn't attend this time either, but the postman did. So did Officer Hernandez, who used to chase half these kids off street corners. Today, he shook their hands like they were college grads. Maya took the mic first. Her voice trembled only once. "I came to Oakfield pretending to be someone I wasn't," she said. "And I thought I needed saving, but what I really needed was to see what real work, real trust, and real community looked like." She paused, searching for Derek in the crowd. Found him, arms folded, nodding just once. "This program isn't about fixing cars. It's about fixing the way we look at people. Some of these kids were told they'd never matter, that they were trouble, that they didn't belong. Well, they belong here, and now they've got hands that can rebuild engines and maybe rebuild their lives." The applause was soft, but honest. Then Derek stepped up, cleared his throat, and said only 5 words. "Your past doesn't define you," and walked off. That was all it took. Later that night, when the chairs were folded and the hot chocolate pots cleaned out, Maya found Derek again standing by the bay door, watching the snowfall blur the streetlights. She leaned on the frame beside him. "That was your big speech." "Less is more," he said. She smirked. "You always this humble?" "I try." There was a beat of silence. "You know," she added, "I never told you why I really came to Oakfield." He didn't respond. "I wasn't just hiding from scandal. I was hiding from myself, from the girl who only ever dated hedge fund managers and wore clothes that cost more than your truck. I'd forgotten how to breathe in a place where no one wanted anything from me." Derek turned toward her. "And now I can finally exhale." He nodded slowly, then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope, handed it to her without a word. She opened it. It was a single piece of folded paper worn and creased. Inside in his handwriting were just 2 sentences. "If you're still here 6 months from now, I'll tell you what I've been wanting to say since day one. If not, thank you anyway." Maya blinked. "What is this?" "A promise?" He said, "But only if you're still here." "I'm not going anywhere," she said, eyes soft. He smiled. "Then you'll hear it in June. Started a community fund." Even the mayor showed up one afternoon unannounced, asking to see what the fuss is about. He left with grease on his cuff and a signed thank you card from the twins. And on the first warm day of June, Derek called Maya outside. He stood beneath the same old tree that shaded the garage lot. His hands were steady, but his eyes held a flicker of something more. "You're still here," he said. "I told you I wasn't leaving." He nodded, pulled out the same envelope, now freshly folded. "I rewrote it," he said. "Same words, different ending." She unfolded it. This time the words were typed. "You're not like anyone I've ever met. And if you'll let me, I'd like to build something more than just engines with you. Her voice caught. Derek, no rush, he said. Just thought you should know. She reached up, brushed a flake of sawdust from his shoulder, and whispered. I knew from the day I faked that car breakdown. He laughed. You're terrible at lying. I'm getting better at telling the truth. They stood there, framed by the tree, the shop behind them, the town ahead, and somewhere in the distance, an engine roared to life, just tuned, just fixed, just ready to move forward like them, brought to you by BUP Stories.